Hey, good evening. Adam Fitzgerald, co-host Talking Hour. With me, Ed Brotherton, formerly We Are Change LA. We're doing a video response to good old Gene Laratonda and Sandra Jemli at the War Room last Saturday. They spoke about us, but we're actually going to be responding to certain points made by certain people and certain statements made by certain people, including good old Adam Eisenberg. And this clip I'm going to be playing, and me and Ed are going to be talking about what is being said in this clip, because Eisenberg really stole the show, basically. And Gene actually gave him a good 20 minutes to talk about the Pentagon and talk about what he's going to do in response. And from what I saw, Ed, was basically flabbergasting, considering that, according to him, he's going after a whole load of people. So I'm going to play the video, and yeah, we'll stop it from different points.
Certainly do not believe the official story, just as we who believe large airliners hit the Twin Towers do not believe the official story. To say otherwise is a misunderstanding their message at best. To say otherwise is misunderstanding their message at best. Well said, Fran Shore, not by me. Adam, to you.
You want to remove the screen share, Gene?
Getting there.
Okay.
You are muted, my brother.
Okay, thank you. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Adam Eisenberg. I spent 240 hours on site between September 11th to the 30th. I'm also likely the only person on site that has any experience with airplane parts. I spent several months working as a high-level senior kind of official in a
facility. Yeah, I knew you were gonna hit on this.
How does he know he's the only person on site that has experience with plane parts? And he didn't have experience with plane parts at the time he was on site. You can proceed.
Right, but I wanted to add too, he's not being totally honest here. He's being a little bit disingenuous, because he worked for Pratt and Whitney, according to him,
Right.
after
Well, no, I think he worked for, I think it was
UPS.
was it Pratt? No, he worked for it was I can't remember. Wasn't it like UPS?
Yeah, was it UPS?
Yeah, but he worked at a facility that had lots of plane parts.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, but that came afterwards, so he couldn't have, like, he didn't
Several
relate
years
that to the
afterwards.
room.
Right.
So right off the bat,
And I asked him about that too. So he kind of gave me a kind of a no answer regarding it, but you know, he needs to acknowledge that.
sure.
He didn't have no experience with plane parts at the time he was there on site, from what I understand, based on his own story, his own narrative.
Right, and that's coming from him, because we spoke into Adam Eisenberg in a Zoom meeting, me and Ed.
Right.
facility, their #1 part storage facility. So I typically overlay those two experiences. My efforts into investigating
he did say he was overlaying the two experiences, but come on, it's you can't. I don't think you can really do much with that. You know what I mean? It's like you're several years. It's too much time has gone by. Several years have gone by, and you're not going to be able to gain knowledge over a period of time after the fact about plane parts, even though it's not even probably not really thorough. You know what I mean? It's not like comprehensive. And then try to, in your mind, imagine going back to ground zero or I'm sorry, 9/11, the Pentagon, and try to retrace your steps mentally in order to determine plane parts.
Right, and what he's insinuating here, Ed, is that he is on the ground and he has experience with plane parts, identifying plane parts, when that wasn't the case.
Exactly.
Right.
Subject kind of grant me a little bit of a key that researchers don't have, being a person that spent extensive time on site. So I can knock on some doors that most researchers get ignored. And if people don't talk to me, it can be considered a little weird. And in my efforts to get answers, I have basically uncovered an element that was on site that had no authority to be there, that had the ability, the technical abilities and the capabilities and the know-how from a military black ops / CIA perspective. I have been investigating these people. These people are well aware that I am investigating them. I can say publicly that you know, these efforts have been going on for over a year now. So my efforts hopefully will come up with something that can be used in a court of law. I do admire the people that are out there that are trying to make 9/11 progress there. Ultimately,
I hope they
think
do
that,
too, Adam.
Right. I
I
don't
hope
know.
they do too.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what he thinks it's good. All this is going to come out. I mean, it's all going to be centered on Lee Wheelbarger.
I assume so.
Yeah, I'm because you know what? My theory is that if he could discredit Lee Wheelbarger, that means he could discredit everybody that was there that saw a plane hit, because Lee Wheelbarger says a plane actually hit the Pentagon. So if he
That's
could
right.
discredit Lee Wheelbarger, he could discredit everybody else.
Right. So, but yeah, you're poisoning the well
Right.
and then guilt by
Exactly.
association.
Yeah, exactly.
what's most valuable though is the truth, and ultimately the truth is going to shine bright. But I'm just going to say it clearly: there were people that
Not
had no
shining right
authority to be
now.
on site, doing things there, saying things there, and when you mash these stories up over a number of public appearances, in addition to some things that I have got people to say publicly in anger, it doesn't add up. And so I can just say that a lot of these online discussion panels ultimately go to the witnesses. And I will now say that there are efforts being made to show that there is extreme levels of government corruption that tie in not only potentially FEMA, local firefighting agencies, the renovation project,
Wow.
the Secret Service,
Man.
all of this and others. I have names, and
Go ahead and
these
pause it real
names are
quick.
Yeah.
Notice how he left no stone unturned. He named them all, everything, because you can't, because you know this is a big clue about how this is how you tell. And I'm sorry to say it, Adam, but you know, this is how you tell when somebody is they think they're doing a good job investigating something, or they might be onto something, but the fact that he mentioned all those institutions, all those entities, and then clumped them all in one big conspiracy, which there may not be, I don't know. But usually when you do that kind of generalization, it really means that you have nothing specific.
Exactly.
So he has nothing specific. Otherwise he wouldn't be so general with everything. FEMA, CIA, he even has the fire departments involved in it. It's like, come on, man. It's like, you know, give me something specific.
Right.
You know.
Name me somebody within those agencies that you have a problem with, like say somebody from Arlington County Fire Department, somebody from
Right.
the FBI, somebody from FEMA.
Right.
Give me a name. What is
Well,
it that you disagree with?
but he'll tell you that it's he's not ready to release that yet. He's still
Exactly.
investigating it and blah blah blah. And like, that's what he'll tell you. And it's but I don't know why. Here's what I don't understand. I don't know why he's coming out now with all this stuff and telling us that, oh, he's got this, he's got that, and then never revealing anything. And it's like, why don't you wait until you're done with your work and then reveal it? Otherwise, you're just like telling us everything you're going to do, and we're all sitting back waiting for you to do it.
He's been saying this for months now.
Yeah. I don't understand the tactic here.
He also once said, and I think you were there, Ed, when he said that he had to go into witness protection program. And then a couple of days later, And then a couple of days later, he's doing a marathon.
Yeah, I don't know if he said exact those words. I think he told his, I don't remember. It was
Oh, no,
something
he's gonna
about
bring,
that.
he was gonna, his girlfriend,
Yeah,
and that they would have to like enter like a program or something, or just like be
I
hidden away from
yeah, I can't remember exactly what it was. It was something about that. Basically, it was like there was some. It was an implication that they were not safe,
right. Right, exactly
and
right.
and that's the whole point. There was
Yeah.
an implication they're not safe. It's like this. Big brother's coming after him. I don't know, but and again, I don't know if they are or not. But it's a lot of talk, and there's nothing. He didn't show anything,
No action. Yep.
Same
and that was
things that are
our initial frustration.
With him,
'Cause,
right. I
yeah,
agree.
that was our initial frustration with him. It was like, I gave him all the opportunities in the world to talk and tell us, hey, are you sure we gave you do you have enough? Did we give you enough of a platform here to say everything you needed to say? And we did that like twice with him, if I remember right.
Hmm.
And each time it never revealed anything beyond what it revealed before, which was pretty much nothing. It was just a lot of I'm going to do,
And never do it.
I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It's like, well, okay, great. But you gotta, show something at some point.
We have results.
very nefarious. And ultimately, these names lead to intelligence networks that are wide. And so I've been investigating all this. My efforts are still ongoing. There are people that have been in the war room in the past that are helping me. This is stuff that I'm going through very slowly. But in my efforts to investigate, I'm also conducting research in areas that I haven't been able to find answers in. So I think there's new research that can be looked into, specifically the United States Army, the Old Guard, of which I was a member of. There's about 300 people on site. I'm trying to get witness statements from each and every single one of them concerning their efforts. And all of them can say the same thing. They spent about 240 hours on site. So they're going to say a lot of interesting things, but ultimately, I believe that there was some type of a thermobaric weapon inserted on site. There is ways of filing FOIA requests in specific areas that I was at that will ultimately really make it very interesting to see that if there was an actual trajectory of damage, why were bodies winding up where they were in the manner in which they were being found. Just a lot of things didn't make any
That's
sense.
been
So
heavily
Yeah.
discussed and well understood.
He said this to us, that he was in one area. I remember this conversation, Ed?
Yeah,
That he was
yeah.
in that one area where he saw a pile of bodies and they didn't look like they were, like they weren't, obviously their injuries were not relating to being impacted by the plane, but they were suffocated.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there was it was like one. There was like severe burns on one, asphyxiation on the other, or suffocation on the other. And I wouldn't characterize it as a pile of bodies. I think they were like sitting in desks or something like
Yeah,
that.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's understandable because what happens is when you have a big fire like that, all the oxygen gets sucked out of the air, so you can't breathe.
Right.
And that's how many of them died.
Right. The majority of
You
them
should-
died like that.
Yeah.
And even
and then
Gene-
you suc-
right.
And then you
And-
succumb to the smoke and then eventually the fire.
Right, and he just doesn't understand that part because he's saying, well, they shouldn't have died like that. Well, have you ever been inside a place where it was burnt? And for example, there was this clubhouse in Boston, and you might remember this. That was a huge news story. What was it, White Lion, when they had that concert?
No, white. It was
White Snake,
It was Great White,
Great White. Thank you very much. And I think
and that
it
was in
2000
it was in Rhode Island, I think,
Rhode Island, 2002, 2003.
around there.
Yeah, and all the bodies were basically they weren't burned, but they
Right.
suffocated.
Right,
That's exactly what happened here with the Pentagon.
right. perfect example, during the forest fires out here in California, if you're out there in the forest during those fires, you're going to have a very difficult time, surviving if you're caught out there, because the fire just sucks all the air out.
Yeah, right.
In fact, you can't. In fact, people who were getting killed because they were trying to drive out of the area and fleeing the forest fires,
Mhm.
but there was no oxygen in the air, so the engine could not suck in air in order to give it what it needed to continue going. So the car breaks down,
Mhm.
and now they're stuck out in the middle of a fire, and a forest fire, and they perish.
Right.
So it's not a difficult concept to understand, and it's very well understood what were the reasons why many of them died.
Yeah, exactly. And, if only he can, reason to that effect, like, why did this person die that way? And he basically would try and study about how fire and smoke and the lack of oxygen could lead to a death or something like that.
Right.
And I alluded to this in the interview I did with James Schwartz, the Pentagon incident commander, where he basically said when the plane actually impacted the first floor, the explosion was so massive, it shook out the air out of thin air, out of the air, and then
Right.
replaced it with jet fuel, right? Like almost
That's right.
instantaneous.
Yep. Displacement.
Yeah, exactly.
And then all the bodies on the plane, well, where are they going to go? And when you go from 500 miles an hour to zero and that fast, it's like it's called inertia. We learned it in science class.
Yeah.
Everything's moving, everything's going to continue moving forward, and that's why all the bodies ended up where they ended up.
And in the book Firefight, written by Patrick Creed, which was forwarded by James Woods, in the book, it basically said that the people in the back of the plane became the front of the plane in less than half a second.
That's right.
And imagine somebody like, because Eisenberg brings this up and says, I didn't see anybody that looked like they were on the plane. Yeah, that's exactly right, because they were basically reduced to molecules almost.
That's right. That's right.
I can just assure you that there's a lot of research going into it, and I want to thank the people that are assisting me with that. And I also want to say that very soon I'm going to be talking publicly about some people in the 9/11 truth movement. And that's all I want to say about that. So that's all I got to say.
boy.
What's a thermobaric weapon?
Yeah, I was just looking it up.
Yeah, look at
Yeah,
this weapon. He
it's-
thinks that
it's
did
a,
the
it's a
damage.
weapon. And it basically, it was used, to my understanding, militarily in a lot of cave situations where the way the bomb exploded, it would kill people in cave systems that were down underground without having to actually go down into these caves and to interject.
That's
with
what he
that
thinks
thing.
hit the Pentagon.
Yeah, it's just the way that the bodies were being found. Somebody that knows weapon systems very well recommended that I study these things. And there's a lot of really interesting patterns that I'm finding. And these patterns are also kind of lining up with what first responders on site were saying. So there's like I said, there's a lot of different elements.
Okay, right here, I would have, if I'm Gene or Sandra, I'm basically saying, all right, hold up, Adam, wait a minute. This is a remarkable claim you're making. What evidence is there? What information do you have that gives you this perception? No, they just went along with it. It's just like
Yeah.
Richard Gage. Oh, okay. At least it's going
And
against the official narrative.
And what's funny, I don't know how long the thermobaric weapon, theory has been out there, but I've heard of it recently.
Yeah, I never
So,
heard of it. I never heard.
Yeah, so it's like a new trend. It's like the new trend. So now
So
it
you've
just
heard,
has-
you've heard of it,
yeah.
Ed? I never did.
Yeah, I heard of it like maybe a year ago.
Oh wow, really?
Floating
Yeah.
around. Yeah, but I never. It was floating around with the 9/11 Truth Movement, but it's. I don't think anybody ever took it seriously. But then because that it's been floating around, now people are looking at it, and then and like Adam here, I think is just. I don't know. He's just jumping on the trend.
So you got to understand, Gene, if you're watching this, right? So you got to understand, like, this is our frustration with people like yourselves, right? You're not making the claim, right? But someone like this guy is basically given carte blanche to talk about this. and in opposition to a plane which everybody saw crash into the building. But he's given legitimacy. And when we criticize him, you basically call us rude. Well, actually, what we're doing is we're trying to save the truth movement from itself. You're allowing legitimacy to these arguments. And yet you're mad at us. Now, you could say I'm rude. Yeah, me. You can't say that about Ed or Sean. They've never been rude to you. I have. I've been rude to Bob, and I was disgusting to Bob Arnold. I'll even admit it. I'm not hide behind it, and I'll do it again.
That's the only person I've been really, she needs to be called out.
Well, I mean, look, if you're repeating 20 years ad nauseum falsehoods about this particular incident, you know, this is, I'm going to keep it
not just
G-rated.
falsehoods, but just straight up lies. She knows she's lying.
Right? Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's why I'm harsh on her,
Right.
because she knows what she's doing.
Exactly.
There's no way she could not know what she's doing.
And there's a lot of different ways that I can kind of look into this situation, just because I spent a lot of time on site there, and so I can kind of come up with ways of demanding information from the government that go outside of the parameters of what they have offered.
You can't do anything different than we can do.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. I don't care if you're former military. Ed's former military. I'm not.
Right. I may not have been on site, but that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't give me any
Right.
special clout.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, or that wouldn't give you any special clout.
Right. You're
So I
not
don't
getting
know.
any additional special privileges.
Right.
In other words.
And ultimately, my goal is to show that they're just withholding extreme amounts of information. And so my efforts, I'm formally calling them the.
If they're withholding extreme amounts of information, what information specifically are they withholding? If you know about it.
Be specific. Right.
Orion project are basically doing a full-scale alpha to omega breakdown with extreme detail into everything from the geopolitics leading up to the crime scene to the entire crime scene itself.
Oh, Adam Eisenberg, I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Each and every witness. Yeah. And ultimately, I'm going to pressure the witnesses that say they saw a plane actually hit the building.
Oh.
And if people say, well, you're dragging these poor people into this event, how could you? Ultimately, I go back to the people that I have on site saying the terrible things that I have them on record saying, and there's hours upon hours of it. And so, you know, I hate to say it, that's my thing. Yeah,
exactly. This is why I give you the hard time, right? It's you versus them. Just like you said to me in the comment section in that Richard Gage video, where you basically said to me, Adam, you're saying 86 people saw the plane, but you haven't seen my evidence. Have you ever given, this is what you said, have you ever given the thought that they all could be lying? So in other words, I will believe you because you were there after the fact, instead of over 86 people that I can name specifically who were there, who saw the plane at the building. And now you're basically saying that I'm going to investigate all these people. You're not. You're not.
He's not a witness to it.
Yes, right.
He was part of the cleanup.
Right. And that's coming from
He's a witness. He's a witness to the extent of what he saw in the aftermath of during the cleanup.
Right.
Because he has personal firsthand knowledge of that. That's fine. But don't claim that you're a witness to the incident itself by saying that you know that you have evidence and no other people have evidence that no plane hit the Pentagon.
Right.
Or so I don't. It's such flawed logic. I don't. I wish he would just think about what he's saying and what he's doing, and understand where his train of thought is going, because it doesn't make any sense.
There's a crime that happens. An investigator comes along. and then he surveys the crime scene. The first thing he does is take out a notebook and list about the evidence that he sees. The second thing he does, he wants to talk to eyewitnesses who were there at the crime, not after the fact. Why would anybody want to talk to you regarding what happened at the Pentagon? Why would anybody want to talk to Xander Arena or Gene Laratonda or Sandra Jemli or Chief Littlejohn, whatever his name is, or Lawrence Fine or Richard Gage or Rebecca Roth, Barbara Honegger, Christopher Bolin, Jason Burmis? I can name dozens and dozens. They weren't there.
Even us. Even us.
Even us. We weren't there. But what we're going by is we're going by the testimonies of people who were there.
That's right.
That's it. Nothing else. We don't got a position. We're going by the physical, analytical, and technical evidence of what happened. You aren't. That's the difference between you and us. And somehow you think that we represent the official narrative because to you, you've been told, browbeaten no less, over the years that the official narrative is 19 Islamic fundamentalists hijacked 4 planes and they crashed into the World Trade Center, Pentagon, Shanksville. And that's all the official narrative is, which is basically a microcosm of what was reported in the 9/11 Commission report. And that's 14 chapters long, over 600 pages. And I doubt you ever read it. So if that's the official narrative to you, then what narrative do you represent? Because to me, the official narrative makes a lot more sense than what you're presenting. I mean,
Well, I think the whole thing is though that, and to their credit, and earlier in the video they did mention that Barbara Scher's quote, talking about the both sides have a just when you accuse one side of one theory, then it's like, oh, then we accuse them of believing the official narrative, when in fact we don't. It's just a different viewpoint on the evidence,
right?
And that's all it is. So, they did bring that up. I'll give them credit for that. But at the same time, they also, it's like they want to entertain this. I don't know why they're continuing to entertain this and why they're making it so difficult. It's there's all sorts of. They even went through a whole list of. I think we'll probably get to it later, but a whole list of, the missile theory, then firing from the ocean, and you got helicopters involved, and it's just like come on, guys, it's like just keep it simple, it's like look at the evidence, keep it simple, don't complicate it. You don't have to complicate it. Don't overthink it.
Right.
It's not rocket science.
If you're looking for conspiracy, there are plenty. And myself, Nelson, Ryan Dawson, Darren Harvey, Ed, and Sean Russell, I mean, ad nauseum daily, we're posting something that actually goes against your official narrative. But you don't want to entertain that because you actually think that hijackers and planes represent that narrative. And I'm telling you that there's more to the story than that. That's pre-intelligence. But you want me, and this is coming from Sandra and Gene, you want me to simplify it for you. I'm sorry, I can't do that. And you got to do the work involved. But you want to be told in a short little package, simple things that, I'll just repeat what I don't have to prove for. And I'll believe anything if it goes against your narrative. And that's just a problem I have with them.
Prove that there were nefarious efforts being made by government employees on.
What government employees?
I'm afraid to say that publicly. So
wait, you broke up there. You were afraid to say something about employees.
No, I said I can prove with extreme clarity through hours of testimony that there were government employees on site that were nefariously entered into that position.
Who?
And they're saying things that are just so off.
It goes back to your point, Ed. It's generalizing.
Yes,
That's all it. No specifics.
it's like the
Well, who?
boy who cried wolf. It's the boy who
Right.
cried wolf.
Right. Yeah.
You know, that's what we got. It's like I know what happened. Here's my I know what happened. I know what happened. And then you come running to him, and it's like and he gives you nothing. And then he cries. He says it again. I got evidence. I have evidence. I have evidence. And you come to him and you ask him about it, and he gives you nothing. And here he is again, giving you nothing.
Who? Name names.
Right. If you don't have it yet, and you don't want to reveal it, then
Don't say
don't
it.
come on a video up here and tell us all this stuff about what you're doing, and just wait till you're done and then reveal it. Otherwise, you're gonna lose credibility. That's what it's all about here. I don't dislike Adam. I mean, it's like I'm sitting there trying to I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to save him a lot of heartache because he's going to lose credibility, and he doesn't realize that. If he really truly has something, be quiet, do the work, get it solidified. Tie it. Get it down. Complete your investigation, and then come out with it. You got to
remind
do it
me-
at the right time.
Right. You remind me of like a TV series where basically at the end they say, tune in next week and we'll tell
Right.
you about Mary. And then
Right.
when we turn in next week, it's just like every other week, you drag us and
Right.
string us along. You've
Yeah,
been
it's like,
saying
I
this
don't-
for months.
I'm not interested in binge watching Adam Eisenberg.
I am.
Track, and they're disinforming and just extreme levels. And this one individual specifically, he to my understanding, he even considered himself, he
Yeah.
publicly went on record saying, that he
Real
was
bug.
doing spooky things for the government. So he was a total spook. His own family members were under the Trump administration about to be promoted to the highest levels of the CIA. So I don't know where these
Were they?
I have no idea.
I don't. They were about to be promoted to the highest level of CIA. They were about to be. What does that even mean?
Yeah, I don't even know.
What did they get called in for a job interview? Would it be? I mean, what did that mean?
What's the highest levels of the CIA? Well, I could tell you the director of operations, the DDO, the DCI, which is the director of the Counterterrorism Center, and also the director of the national, the new agency they have. Hank Crumpton used to run it. I forgot the name of the agency, but yeah, that's the highest levels of the CIA. And it takes years to get there.
connections, how deep and how far they go. But this guy, to one person's
Special Activities Division branch. Yeah.
knowledge,
Okay.
there was only one individual that even knew who this person was that I'm speaking of, and that was Ken Jenkins. Ken Jenkins, in a conversation, and several with me actually, has said that this man was on site, and he was basically there, just showed up as one of those rogue do-gooder kind of people.
Why is he
James
hiding the name?
Schwartz,
Why does he
incident.
not mention him? He's already mentioned him before.
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? You know what he's talking about.
Yeah. Well, I know what he's talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm going to lower the boom soon.
Right. It's like but he's already revealed this name.
Right.
We already
And
know
again,
who he's talking about.
right. If I'm Gene and Sandra, I'm like, all right, what do you talk? Be specific.
Right. I mean, it's like if I was Gene or Sandra, I'd be like, "Yo, why are you? Are you talking about? I'm not hitting the name because I can't remember it off the top of my head right now for some
No,
reason.
it's all right.
It's late.
Tim.
What's the name?
No, just say Tim or something.
No, what was his real name?
Oh, Lee Wheelbarger.
Yeah, Lee Wilberger. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why is he not saying his name? Because he's mentioned him a million times in other videos.
Now he does say it in here, though.
Yeah, but why is he not saying it
No,
here?
I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
strange.
Commander,
Because he was the guy that Ken Jenkins talked to.
Right.
As soon as he said Ken Jenkins knew who he was, we already know who he's talking about.
Yeah.
So it
I
is a
don't know.
mess.
himself basically said that there were 24 elements on site, different various firefighting elements.
Oh, I
and
got
that some
let me
showed
go
up,
that back because this is involving
unannounced,
James Schwartz.
and
I'm sorry.
rogue do-gooder kind of people. James Schwartz, the incident commander himself, basically said that there were 24 elements on site, different various firefighting elements.
Not elements, first of all. They're firefighting agencies from Fort Myer, from Arlington County, from Fort Belvoir, Ronald Reagan International Airport, all descended on. It was the largest response by first responders in Washington, D.C. history at that time. That's what he was alluding to. But you just try to make it sound more nefarious. Well, James Schwartz said there was 24 elements or agencies, and they're all
Right.
respond. Like, come on, you know what? Grow up, brother. That's not, be specific, all right? Because we're gonna be.
And that some showed up unannounced. And basically, my investigation is into those people and those elements that were on site. But I can also say publicly now that if you go and listen to Adam Fitzgerald, he's my biggest critic. If you go and listen to his podcast with James Schwartz, he talks about these elements. And so I've got these elements kind of.
I don't know what
What's he talking about?
With James Schwartz.
I don't know what he's talking about right here, Ed. I don't know. What are you talking about?
Yeah, they're called firefighters. There was a fire. But these elements showed up, and we even Adam Fitzgerald interviewed James Schwartz, who even confirmed it and talked about these elements showing up. Yeah, they're called firefighters. There was a fire and a big boom.
Yeah, it was a 5 alarm, and it basically sounded everybody in the vicinity of Arlington. That's who descended first.
Right, but why is he talking about them talking about all this like it's like all 007 shit?
Yeah, right. Well, he's got to make it sound like everyone's basically
it's dramatic.
Yeah,
it's dramatic.
Yeah, dramatic.
So I'm about to leverage James Schwartz, the incident commander, and this guy against one another. Random fact: James Schwartz's wife was a very high-ranking member in the CIA as well, which I'm not even going to speculate into that. But
you already did.
You did, yeah.
You already did. So I told James Schwartz about this because you mentioned this before about his wife being with the CIA. I said, this poor guy for the last 15 years has been harassed by truthers who don't believe a plane at the Pentagon. The guy, him and FBI agent Chris Combs, who was in charge of the collection of the plane debris, they were harassed almost weekly. They sent letters to the district attorney and an attorney general in Arlington, and basically said that these people should be arrested because they're covering up actually what happens at the Pentagon. And it's people like you, Adam Eisenberg, you completely harassed him. So I told James Schwartz, about what you said about his wife and stuff like that, and that be careful because this guy, he's unpredictable, and you are. And, I don't want this poor guy to be harassed by people like you. There's a reason why I never gave him your contact information. I'm sorry I even brought him up to you. But you know what? If you're going to say that he's in on it because his wife worked for the Central Intelligence Agency and that makes him guilty by insinuation, which is what you're alluding to, that's the reason why you brought it up. Well, like I said, I'm going to keep this G-rated. But what
I know what you're saying inside. I know what you're really saying inside.
Yeah. Yeah. Things that I said about Barbara Honegger in the email. I mean, this is really like a low blow for you. You're a grown man and you're going to be doing this.
I can just say, like I said, there's a lot of things that don't add up. And and Ken Jenkins thought this man was just an individual on site. But this guy actually on record states that he had his firefighters there. And to my understanding, he was a part of a West Coast agency, and even his own government agency had no idea that he was on site. That picture that you just had as well, back before that, that one right there, that guy to the left is General James Jackson. I'm investigating him as well. He was the Military District of Washington's commander. He, set out an order. It was to my understanding, he ordered people from my unit to guard Fort McNair. I was a part of that order, and I wasn't given live rounds. They basically handed me an empty magazine. So when I asked the arms room specialist, hey, why are you giving me an empty magazine to guard a base when I can see smoke from the Pentagon right over the Anacostia River? Well, he said, well, you haven't been authorized to get live rounds. That's just a random story. So I'm investigating him as well. I'm trying to get answers there. But
Applause
Ken
that.
Jenkins
Applause
going back.
Yeah, yep.
Look, here's the thing. You have when it comes to when the military makes decisions like that, it's perfectly reasonable and perfectly within their realm of responsibility and scope of authority to be able to make that kind of decision with respect to let me put it this way. If you're in this general, or what's the name? What do you call him? General?
General James Jackson?
Yeah. So if you're in his shoes and you have a terrorist attack that just took place at the Pentagon, at the World Trade Center, and the routine is that your base, all your military installations are going to go on a higher threat con.
Mhm.
So it's going to go on a higher threat, a higher like a threat con Charlie, threat con Delta situation, more likely a threat con Charlie. So when that unit is asked to guard Fort McNair, the rules of engagement at this point are not clear. All right, there's the threat assessment that's being done at this point in time. I would say would not warrant live ammunition. But it does warrant the presence of firearms in order to make yourself known. It's like but you don't. They don't want to give you ammunition because number one, you're in the United States and they don't want you going half cocked over American citizens because for whatever reason. So it's even when I can't really say how that would play out in the Air Force with respect to my job, because that was my job with security. So I always carried live rounds. But his job wasn't, well, he was part of that guard. So I would say he would be responsible for that to some degree. But you have to look at the threat assessment at the end of the day, and that's what the general will be looking at. What is the threat? What's the threat assessment with respect to Fort McNair? And is there any credible threat toward that target? And obviously, he made the call and he had every right to make that call.
Right.
And it's nothing, you put it this way, it doesn't warrant an investigation. It does not warrant an investigation at all. So this whole idea about him using that as a reason to make him all of a sudden a nefarious character is kind of silly in my book.
Can I get your opinion, Ed, on this? Because this is a theory I was bringing up. Maybe the reason why he was not given a weapon is because he's going into a hazardous situation where the weapon could be a liability to him and his personal safety, regarding that the Pentagon's on fire, or that he's going into a very tumultuous situation with his chemicals and whatnot.
Well, no, because I think he's referring to this situation as him being tasked to guard Fort McNair.
Okay.
Fort McNair is the subject here, not the Pentagon at this time.
Right.
So, but I don't know anything about Fort McNair. I don't know what their security procedures are. I don't know what their security posture is. I don't know what their SSIs are. I don't know what anything about their security. So, I don't know. Was he considered an augmentee to the regular security? I don't know. So
Right.
I think the general know better. He's a general, and he can make that order. So
to the guy I'm investigating, this guy's name is Lee Wheelbarger. Ken Jenkins thought that he was basically put on site. He came on site as a lone wolf, and that is absolutely not the case. I've asked Ken Jenkins numerous times if he could give me details on the interaction that he had with Lee Wheelbarger. He's indicated that he's had notes on the man, so I'm working with him.
So wait a minute, you just alluded to that, that there are more people like Lee Wheelbarger, because Ken Jenkins said he was a lone wolf guy that just walked on site. Now you could prove that there were others? Well, who are they?
Well, what the funny thing is, there were others, because even James Schwartz talked about how they had problems with volunteers coming in
Yeah,
and wanting to help.
exactly.
So there are a lot of lone wolves.
Sure. But he's acting like, oh, these all people could be nefarious agents. So I want to know
Right.
how you're going to prove that,
Right.
because I don't think you're going to.
I've been trying to get those notes for quite some time, so I'm going to be writing him again about that. But yep, long story short, there he is. That's the man who is publicly threatening me and basically doing everything he can to smear me. That is the star element of my investigation. He says, and a lot of things that just aren't true. So
Which are?
that's all I'm going to say about that.
Like
But,
what? Yeah, exactly. It's like,
Yep.
you got this platform, fucking use
All
it.
right, so coming back
And this is another thing why I get on Eugene and Sandra, is that you don't, and this is something I do with Richard Gage too. Like,
Not a single question. Not a
Yeah,
single
thank
question.
Thank you. No follow-up.
No calling anybody out on shit. It's like there's so many things you could have called him out on that in that whole conversation, or at least ask a question.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
it. That's all I want. That's all. Hey,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Where are you getting that information from? Or
Yes.
who are you talking about?
Right.
Nothing.
It's, because yeah. You go ahead.
Yeah, in other words, trust me.
question to everybody, but now to you, what would be you're
Okay,
basically
finally, here's a
saying no
question,
plane hit
in
the
all
Pentagon?
fairness.
I do not
Or are
remember
you
it
not?
all. Just
Okay.
the damage wasn't even close to something that I would say had anything to do with a plane, especially a large commercial airline hitting there. I would say that if there were elements of the plane that flew, if there was an actual plane, you could break down the argument from a number of different ways. And of course, we all know the way that I don't even want to get into that, but
You can't.
there's just a lot of things that I think a lot of witnesses that could have been put out there. If you look at the way that the FBI was collecting parts between Shanksville and the Pentagon, it was totally different. And I can tell you, I did not see anything in my 240 hours on site that looked at all like there was any type of plane debris. I didn't see any people that looked like they died on a plane.
How would a person look like if they were hitting a wall at 563 miles an hour, loaded with 38,000 pounds of fuel? What would it look like? Have you ever compared anything like the Pentagon to anything else? No, because it's never happened before. Now, we showed you how crash sites are similar to that of, say, Shanksville, for example, right? Where there's little plane debris. Well, this is what happens when a Boeing airliner is going at a high rate of speed, fully loaded with kerosene. There's not going to be a whole engine. There's not going to be whole fuselage. There's not going to be a whole body. Just think, the body is 90% liquid. The plane exploded on impact, going at a high rate of speed. The back of the plane became the front of the plane in less than half a second.
Look at the images of those who jumped to the World Trade Center.
Exactly. Anything left?
And on top of that, he's talking about anything that looked like plane debris. I was like, well, what were you looking for it? I don't know. I don't know if you were or not. Were you looking for plane debris? And And do you know how to identify a piece of plane debris? Not a plane part, but a piece of plane debris.
Mhm.
Because you can have a plane part and then have it destroyed and broken into little pieces. But would you know what you're picking up? Would you know what you're looking at?
Right, and
It
this
wouldn't
goes
have
back
it
to,
wouldn't have a serial number on it. It wouldn't have a part number on it.
right, and this goes
That's why
back to the point that he raised, Ed, right? It goes back to the point, that's the reason why he said it. He said, I have experience in identifying plane parts, but not at that time you didn't.
That's right.
So you would, like Ed said, you wouldn't know a plane part from a part of a giant fax machine,
Right.
for example.
Even though there are a lot of plane parts on that at the debris at the Pentagon that were easily identifiable.
Easily. And they were picked
I'm
up
not talking about
immediately.
I'm not talking about the big pieces either.
Right. There's landing gear struts stuck underneath debris.
Yeah, I mean,
Anything.
yeah, exactly. That that alone is like it's just it's mind-boggling to me.
Right, and it
How
all
it's
depends
like
on where you were
can,
too.
yeah, and you can never explain that. They always just ignore that stuff. Like it could have been planted. No, you can't plant freaking 1,000-pound piece of aircraft strut inside lodge inside a bunch of debris in the middle of a fire. It's not going to happen. And only that, but then you got the piece outside that had the actual serial number on it. Remember that? To United Airlines.
Yep.
There's
I
two
remember.
pieces we know
Yep.
that were found like that.
Yeah, that clip.
But then they'll continue to say that there were no pieces with serial numbers. Why did they continue to say that when there were? It's
How do you know what the FBI collected?
yeah.
I just want to know, how do you know they didn't collect it?
Yeah, how many people on site?
Thousands.
Thousands. And you went around and just supervised every single one of them?
Think of it like this too. If a plane didn't crash in the Pentagon, why didn't Zacharias Moussaoui's lawyer basically say, Your Honor, my client didn't commit a crime and wasn't involved in a conspiracy of a crime? Because nothing happened.
Thank you. That's right. That's right.
Meanwhile, you could take a look at the prosecution exhibits used against him. Well, if that's the case and all the evidence is fabricated, why couldn't Zacharias Moussaoui's lawyer basically?
Why couldn't Zacharias Moussaoui walk?
Right, exactly. Right. Why couldn't they prove that the plane debris that was used to prosecute him was manufactured or fictitious? And if
Because
that's
that
the
was part of the
case,
conspiracy.
right. And if that's the case, why haven't you gotten in contact with his law firm? Free a man.
Why haven't you reported it to the FBI?
Right. Instead, you're here in the war room.
And I can tell you, based on the ways that I've shook Lee Wheelbarger publicly, that the specific area on the map where it was a highly protected area where you had to have special access to get on site. So, like I said, I've got several hours of this guy Lee Wheelbarger saying things that are so just terribly, wrong and just nefarious. He's basically changed his. He has a thing called KLW News. He's basically now got a paid news source, so he's now disinforming the masses. And if you look into his subscribership, I mean, he's got 50,000 people following him.
What disinformation is he promoting? Again, like Ed said, you're not specific at all.
Very broad strokes.
I mean, really, anybody could be doing this. I could be
Paints
doing this.
everything he paints everything with the biggest brush you could possibly find.
Membership is in the
And it's frustrating.
multi-millions. But he was on site. He is a technical weapons specialist. And I believe that he ultimately set off what seemed to be like I said, a thermobaric weapon. And those, I believe, even have some type of a gasoline element.
All right. So he's gonna.
Wow.
God damn.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Wow. Man.
Oh.
So Lee Wheelbarger is now, you're going to tie Lee Wheelbarger to this weapon that was used at the Pentagon.
Yeah, but meanwhile, Lee Wheelbarger is still at the Pentagon. He's going to set off a bomb, blow the place up, and stick around to clean up his own mess.
Gene and Sandra, can you understand our frustration with you? I mean, you let this guy get away with murder here. Murder. But he's on our team. I don't get it. I have discussions with Ed. I have discussions with Nelson and Sean and Darren, and we talk about specifics. Say something Nelson's going to bring up to me. And Nelson, I consider a Britannica. He'll say something I never heard of before. And you know what I'll ask him? Even though I consider him the best, I'll ask him to say, Nelson, where'd you get that from? I want to know where you got that from, because I want to know it. I don't want to believe something. I want to know something.
Right.
And he'll tell me. You just sit here, basically, and now asserting that Lee Wilbarger is the one who shot this weapon that created the damage to Pentagon. And Gene, you're just going to sit there and just say, okay. And yet, at the same time, you'll basically get mad at us because we're critiquing and asking these people, where the hell are you getting this from? Why are you mad at us? We're only asking, what evidence does he have for anything he's saying? Anything. But I already know why. It's because he represents anything that is against the official narrative. And
Right.
anything that's promoted, even if it's ridiculous, at least it goes against the official narrative. Not knowing the irony is that we don't agree with this official narrative in its entirety, and that there are conspiracies involved with pre-intelligence, for example, and the cover-up thereof later on. But yet you have a problem is because you don't believe in hijackers. And that's your problem. That's not ours. We could show these anomalies to be true. You can't. End of story. You know, it's funny because you consider David Chandler an authority for the World Trade Center, the ultimate authority, to be honest. You consider him the best. But yet, his studies at the Pentagon, you don't agree with. Why? What difference is there in the scientific method regarding the World Trade Center and the Pentagon? Wasn't the scientific method used for both? I thought Wayne Costy's 5-hour presentation did exactly that. So did David Chandler get it wrong at the Pentagon? And if he got it so wrong at the Pentagon, how could he get it so right at the World Trade Center? He's right at both. But yet, he's halfway right.
Well, maybe one day Adam will tell us.
Tune in next week.
Right. Tune in next week.
Jet fuel, gasoline. I mean, there were people that were allegedly burned by jet fuel.
Look, allegedly. I'll give you one example. Lieutenant
Colonel
Brian Burwell.
Colonel Colonel Schaefer, who by the way this is one that Barbara Honegger screwed up on.
Oh, that's
because
right.
she's the one. This is her witness.
Exactly.
This is her witness to a bomb inside the Pentagon.
Yeah.
And who because he said he thought it was for the construction workers at first, but he actually but you read the article that she pulled from the source, you can reveal that he actually had injuries in his lungs from jet fuel. So, and here's what's funny about it. If you go back to any of these people who make that claim about a bomb inside the Pentagon because they were inside the Pentagon, didn't see the actual plane, therefore didn't know what actually hit the Pentagon, didn't know what really happened, and assumed, logically speaking, would be a bomb. So, hello. So if you go back to any of these people and ask them today, hey, do you believe that a plane hit the Pentagon? They would all tell you, yes, I promise you.
Yeah, Kevin Schaefer, that was his name, right?
Kevin Schaefer.
Yeah. Lieutenant Brian Burwell. He suffered burns over 65% of his body, had parts of his uniform melted into his skin. So I guess he's lying, according to you, Adam Eisenberg, who
There
wasn't
are
there.
many burn victims, including women who wear pantyhose, and the pantyhose end up melting to their legs.
26.
I mean, are we really denying it or the fire?
Right. No, but there was a fire, but it wasn't jet fuel, according to him, because he once said that he didn't smell jet fuel. Meanwhile, everyone else did. People were injured by it, and we can name. By the way, we can name names. I mean, that's easy.
Oh yeah, tons of articles about it.
But when it boils down to it, you know, I'm using my status as a first responder there in the investigation that I have. I'm eventually going to apply very legal. I'm not going to break any rules. I'm not going to threaten anybody, but very heavy levels of pressure to the people that said that they saw an actual commercial airliner hit the building, because I quite frankly don't believe them. And that's
Right, exactly right. That's exactly what you said to me
Right.
in the comments section. That's what you said. Right. So in other words, if I'm Gene or Sandra, I'm going to say, hey, wait a minute. There's a whole lot of people that saw the plane hit the Pentagon. Why should we believe you? Right.
Yeah. And
Why didn't you follow up with this?
Yeah, exactly. And what kind of pressure?
Yeah. Oh, good question.
What kind of pressure? What are you going to say to them?
Yeah. You're going to yell at them?
Yeah, he said he wasn't going to threaten anybody. That's good. But what are you going to say to them? You're going to tell them they didn't? No, you didn't see it.
Right. What else could he possibly say? Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. I don't know what.
Very general. I mean, just vague. I don't know where he's going sometimes, but he leaves it open on purpose because he can't be specific.
That's right.
He can't be
Exactly
specific.
right.
He can't be.
where I think everybody, the arguments always go to the witnesses. And if
Yeah, that's right. Because an investigator is not going to rely on somebody who wasn't there at the scene of the crime. I mean, use your head. Use your head. Goodness gracious, if a murder happens at a crime scene, does a cop go up to somebody random in the street? Hey, by the way, were you here at the crime scene? No. Oh, by the way, yeah, you give me your report.
Somebody shows up at the crime scene like hours later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Can you imagine?
Hey, what happened?
Thinking?
Yes, some random
wants to get
person
pissed
said,
off
"Hey,
at
what
me,
happened?"
I just say, look, find somebody that has the level of experience with airplane parts that I have and the time spent on site that I spent. And even people in my unit, they're going to say a number of things. Most people fall into the category that they don't remember seeing any plane parts. And the funny thing is that the people that think they saw plane parts are saying they saw things that there's no record of. Well, then if anybody wants to, challenge that, you can't find any record of anything anywhere. And I can tell you from my own experience that every single part on a plane has a serial number etched into it.
You brought this up too.
Not true.
Go
Not
ahead.
true.
Take it
Not
away.
true.
Take it away.
Not every part has a serial number. Every part has a part number, not a serial number. There are some parts not serialized. Also, when you have an explosion, it becomes fragments of parts. So what part of the part is the serial number etched or part number etched into? And if that is where the part number is etched into, then what happens when that part becomes fragments of a part, and therefore you pick up a fragment, and therefore no serial number, no part number. This is like grade school fucking shit, man. It's like not goddamn difficult to understand why you're not going to have numbers on all the pieces that you pick up at the fucking Pentagon. And we already explained that there were parts that had serial numbers on it, that we have photographic evidence of it.
To him,
Next.
Every square inch of the plane has the serial number written all over it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one
So in
big
other
serial
words,
number.
The whole body is tattooed.
Yes, it's just tattoos of serial numbers everywhere.
Just imagine thinking this. And Sandra and Gene, you should have known this right away and said, well, not every part of the plane inside of it is gonna have the serial number written in every square inch. But you didn't. Why not? I don't.
And how do you know?
Right, how do they know?
How do you know?
Have you ever seen the building of a plane? Like, 'cause there's some videos on YouTube. I mean, you can
Right.
see it. Have you inside the skeleton part with the fuselage on the inside?
Yeah,
Is the serial number all over?
it's one spot and that's it.
I mean,
If there's a serial number.
right, if.
I can just tell you that. And so, you know, that's where I'm going to try and file FOIA requests. And ultimately, the government's not going to give us anything.
Ah, there it is. There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. He got himself.
So why
out.
bother? So why bother filing?
Right, but why bother file? Right, exactly. You know you're gonna fail. Why bother?
That's right.
So
Well, because you have to go through the because he has to go through the process.
that's
And
correct.
he has to be able to say he did it.
Right, right.
But at the same time, he's been saying this a while. So what's hold up with the FOIA request?
Right.
What's the requesting information? Who's he requesting it to? Is it the FAA, the FBI? Who has custody of these parts? Are they still around? Did he get rid of them? Or did he turn it back over to American Airlines? Yeah,
I
it is
mean-
property of American Airlines.
you know exactly what he's doing here. Like he's gonna
Oh,
give
I know
himself
exactly.
an out. Right.
That's right.
But at least I did something.
And that's where I'm going to go back to, you know, my quest of just showing the public, hey, look, even with my levels of access, you know, I am not getting answers.
What level
So-
what level
What
of
level of
access?
access?
Yeah, what level?
You know, what makes you special? Because you had a job as a soldier to go help clean up during one of the biggest terrorist attack in world history.
I
That
want to
makes
know
that
what
gives you that what gives you special access?
Yeah.
Access to what? And
You're
what
acting like
obligation
you-
does anyone have to give you access to anything
exactly.
other than what's specified in the law?
What special access do you have? Be detailed. What? I want to know what. Because you're alluding to the fact that, oh, I served in the American military. I was there at the Pentagon site. That means that I have special privileges
That's right.
other than anyone else in the 9/11 truth movement.
Mhm.
You want to make yourself seem bigger than what you are. And you're not.
And then ultimately, I have my own personal anomalies that I've experienced with 9/11. I discussed one of them with not getting any ammunition on guard duty, but there's so many others that I'm working on right now. And so, yeah, you know, there's a lot of things that are coming forward. And I would
Pause it
also
real
like
quick.
to say
Yeah,
that,
sure.
You know, I remember I had a very similar experience he had. Okay. We had an air show at our
Yeah.
base at Travis, and we were all on duty that day. And 77,000 vehicles coming through that base in a 10-hour period.
Oh, man.
And I had to direct traffic, and at the one of the most critical points in the entire base, I had to direct 14 lanes of traffic into 2. And it was just bumper to
Wow.
bumper. It was crazy.
Wow.
So we had some experience. So we went to the armory that day to arm up. They didn't give us weapons. They wouldn't let us arm up. So I was like, wait a minute, we're gonna have an open base day, and you're not gonna give us weapons? I had a similar experience. I had the same thought. Why not give us weapons? We didn't even get weapons. We at least he got a gun. You know, at
Right.
least he got one. He didn't get no ammo, but I didn't even get a gun. I usually get one every day when I go to the armory and go get on post. But so now what's ironic is that after that day was over with and I was done for the day, I totally understood why they didn't give us guns, because I would have put a bullet in the back of a couple windows. I was so damn pissed
Right.
off at some people
Sure,
coming
yeah.
through the base.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
it's like, so I get it. I understand it. And it's also about optics. You're out there in the public. What does the the public does not want to, it's like there's an optics aspect of it.
Yeah, not even that. What are you gonna do? Shoot a plane?
Yeah, and you don't want to have a, you also don't want to have a freaking incident, with a civilian on a military base, like that,
Yeah.
So, and on an open base day like that, it's just, you gotta assess the threat. But
Lorraine is doing
Oh.
some great work. If you guys really want to see how good she is with the witnesses, there's some really good discussions on the Facebook group that I think Gene is.
Speaking of that, she's actually just joined us. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah. What's
Okay.
up, Lorraine? Yeah. So yeah, it's great to have her here. But I think ultimately the witnesses, I'm going to be applying a pressure to the ones that say they saw a plane hit. And I think if they react the same way that Lee Wheelbarger is reacting and has been reacting, to me, they're gonna fold and they're gonna run. So
Adam,
Wow.
can I just ask you a
Wow.
technical question? Again, coming back to the thermobaric
Wow.
weapons,
sure.
how would that be deployed? Is that something that has to be shot? Is it something that could
I
be
give
planted?
Sandra
Is it
credit
how-
here. She's asking questions at least.
Way too late, but yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
How does
But
it even work?
Yeah.
Well, to my understanding, it could be both. And here's where it gets interesting. Some people, and I'm not leaning on anybody's work, but some people have talked about drones. Well, Lee Wheelbarger was a drone specialist, weapon systems as well, explosives, electronics, all that stuff. And
He
I
knew
can
it
tell
all.
you, a lot of people
What's that?
say
he knows it all.
Yeah, this guy knows it all.
that they didn't smell jet fuel, but they smelled, I forget what it was. Yep, that's it.
Cordite.
Oh. Ed, this was your finding.
Yeah, cordite was. They stopped using cordite in the 1940s. So yeah, good luck with that one.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference between jet fuel and cordite.
Yes.
Yeah. Jet fuel has a very strong and distinct smell.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, to me, it smelled like an electrical fire. There was that overwhelming electrical burning sensation, but
See,
yeah.
that I think he
know,
is correct. I think he has that absolutely correct, and I talked about that in
Yeah.
my video to Barbara Honegger. Remember that?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, because
That's right.
this is the one thing where Adam actually I really agree with on it. Agree with him on this because all those electrical components are burning. Like I said, I do the sniff test when I check for an electrical component that's not working because I want to see if there's a burnt circuit.
Right.
And it smells. That's what it smells like. So Adam is, I think, absolutely correct on that, and good for him for actually saying that. So.
Cordite smell like. We all gotta have.
Yeah, but some people were burned with gasoline. I don't know, and that's the thing. This is where ultimately I don't believe anybody, and it boils down to the fact that one of the guys in a leadership position, is saying all this crazy stuff, and when
What crazy
there
stuff?
was
What are you talking about?
What? Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about. One of these guys in leadership position is talking all this crazy stuff. Right. One of these guys, I don't know which guy he's talking about,
Right.
in a leadership position, don't know what position he's talking about,
Right.
is talking all this crazy stuff, don't know what crazy stuff he's talking about.
What does that even mean?
I have
He
no
did
idea.
this the whole 20 minutes.
Right.
the command structure. I don't have it unfortunately in front of me, but it's on my other computer. But the gentleman that I'm investigating says that he was the head of logistics, and
Lee
the
Wheelbarger.
incident commander is saying that he had no business on site and he was removed by the FBI at the incident commander's request through his assistant. And then so I've got now this guy who says he was allegedly the head of logistics and spent more time on site than anybody, saying that the FBI was wrong, and he came back and that they were misinformed. And so it's this, it's this great just whirlwind of things that aren't adding up. So
There
You know,
was
I don't know,
the
but
whole, it was a fucking jumbo jet flew into the Pentagon. it was all a whirlwind of shit that didn't add up.
Nothing made sense that day.
Yeah, they do the best they can, man. It was like it was chaos. You know, they're trying to establish command and control. They're trying to keep all the volunteers, trying to keep that under control, trying to secure the area. I mean, there's all kinds of shit going down that day. It's like, so yeah, not everything's going to be like run perfectly, and you're going to get things slipping through the cracks. So,
But you left yourself open, right, Adam Eisenberg, because you basically said, I don't believe anybody that saw a plane.
That's right.
So in other words, you
Right.
got your mind already made up.
It's already made up.
Already made up. Just like every other fringe conspiracy theorist. They look at 9/11 and they automatically assert it was an inside job before even looking at anything. So the only thing you're looking at is information that agrees with that worldview. And those who disagree with it, well, I'm going to treat them very harshly. I'm going to question them. Oh, you really didn't see that. CIT did this. So that's why I said.
I've already asked them about, I already asked them, hey, is there anything that can be presented to you that would convince you that a plane hit the Pentagon?
Hmm.
And remember, he said basically no. He said, if I remember right, it wasn't a definitive no, but it was a very roundabout no, if you know what I mean.
Right. So
He was, I can't remember exact words were, but I remember just definitively, I stepped away from that question, convinced that he is not going to be convinced.
right.
His mind's not open.
He's not right, because he basically thinks that the official narrative is false. That's
right.
it. End of story. Everything else is false. Everyone's lying. And he basically just alluded to that.
Barbaric weapons, if anybody knows anybody that has any type of experience with weapons, missiles, explosive, things like that, let me know. And there's also 3 or 4 days after the incident, James Schwartz did a talk where he was talking about the collapsed portion of the building having an extremely hot, still extremely hot sensation. Like it was unlike anything he'd ever seen. He almost kind of looked dumbfounded in the interview. So, I would love for the scientists to discuss that. I don't think they have, but
Yeah, that would be where the plane impacted the area. It would be hot.
it seems to me that such a small area, and even the pictures don't capture just how small it was. There were several people in my unit that were even making the claim. They're like, that doesn't look anything like an airplane hit it. So I've been saying.
I got information that says contradictory to that.
That's
And I could show it.
Right.
I could show it. You can't. By the way, the roof line of the Pentagon was made out of horsehair, which basically is extremely flammable. That's where the fires kept raging on all throughout the night. And they had a hard time. That's why the firemen from Fort Myer were punching holes in the top of the roof so that the fire could escape out of, or else the whole top of the building would have been burned. And, it's to the grace of the experience of the firefighters at Fort Myer and Arlington and Fort Belvoir, who basically got the fire out in, I think it was 16 hours later or something like that. But
Yeah, those nefarious people.
yeah, they're nefarious people.
The things that I've been saying for a long time. The only reason I didn't really publicly go forward with it is because every time I talked to people outside of my friends and family circle, they looked at me like I was nuts. But now that the jabs are going on,
that was a little dig, but anyway, you know what? Here's the thing, Adam. If you didn't come out with anything yet, you come out with nothing. We've been asking you over and over and over again, what do you got? And you tell us nothing. Let me say it again. You tell us nothing. This whole conversation we've had so far, listening to you in this video, I have learned absolutely nothing.
You did the same thing to us months ago in a Zoom meeting, when we first had the Zoom meeting, when we first met you.
Yes.
You did the same thing.
Yep. And I asked you, do you feel like you've been heard? Do you feel like you got everything you wanted out expressed? Do you feel like you have been acknowledged? And I was very adamant about that. I wanted you to know that we were there to listen to you and hear what you had to say. And then when it was all over with, it was a big nothing burger. So what do you want us to do? A big nothing burger. Forget about wheel burger. It was a nothing burger. That's what you got to
Outside
worry
of Lee
about.
Wheelbarger, right? Outside of Lee Wheelbarger, let's put him to the side just for now, for the sake of arguments. Put him to the side. What do you have that shows that everyone is lying but you? What method are you going to use to show that they're all lying? Are you going to say they're all elements of the government? Are you going to say that they're coerced? Are you going to say that they're just wrong? They basically didn't see that? How are you going to go about proving that? By one person, not everybody, but one person. How are you going to do that? I'm dying to know, because if you're going to say that everybody there that saw the plane hit is lying and you're going to prove it, do you know how many years that's going to take you? You have to find where they are. You have to have the manpower to go and, conduct these interviews, unless you're going there with a notebook. And then when you disagree with them, what could you possibly say? No, you didn't really see that, did you? Well, yeah, I was there. I saw it. No, because I worked at the Pentagon. I didn't see any plane debris. Were you there at the time of impact? No. Well, then why are you claiming I didn't see something when you weren't even there yourself? That's what the conversation would look like. Ed?
Yep. Exactly.
I mean, that short and sweet. You weren't there at the time of impact. They were. You claim to not have seen plane debris afterwards. Meanwhile,
Other people did.
Right, other people did. You're now saying that everyone there is lying at the fact and after the fact, but you.
Yeah, you really need to take a look at that.
Yeah, I think
You
so.
really need to take a hard look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, is this reasonable? Is this plausible? Could everybody be lying and I'm the one telling the truth?
I'll kind of see the overarching tyranny. The world's waking up, so I'm finding that people are very receptive to this information now. So that's really my goal in life.
What
Is
information?
to just
Really, what did you impart specifically?
Right. What information? I'm still waiting.
Besides the name of Lee Wheelbarger, you mentioned no other name.
None. Except for the general,
Right. James Jackson.
who's under investigation for not giving bullets.
Right. Yeah. And James Schwartz. You were specific about that too.
Yeah.
All right. 3 names, right? You mentioned nothing about any contradictory evidence to the plane hitting the Pentagon. In fact, you went as far as to say, when Sandra asked you what happened at the Pentagon, do you believe a plane hit? Well, let's just say that what I saw didn't fit that, which means nothing. You don't have a position, because in order for you to have a position, you basically got to have some evidence for that position. You basically have a speculation.
Not just that, but he has to. For him to have a position means he's taking a side,
Right, he's taking a side.
and he doesn't want to do that.
He wants to leave his options. It sounds like
That's
April
right.
Gallup, doesn't it?
Very much so.
April Gallup, who sued Dick Cheney and Don Rumsfeld in 2011, and then a second civil suit where she added Osama bin Laden and American Airlines. And the reason why she said that was because if the other theories are true, I'm still a victim of that,
Right.
and I
exactly.
deserve compensation.
Discuss this stuff. And like I said, my goal is just over the next few years, just continue to do research and prove that the government is withholding immense amounts of information.
What
So
information?
I'm
What information?
Yeah.
You're not even specific about that. All right. So that's Adam Eisenberg. And so other people,
Didn't he call me a cocksucker at one point?
yeah, that I didn't clip that out.
Oh.
I have because it was real quick. So there's other people that were opining in this 2-hour discussion, and one of them was Xander Arena. And this is what Xander Arena had to say here. And I think Ed has some experience in this area.
There were multiple events there, which created a lot of confusion. And so people do have, firm opinions on what happened. And they're describing the same event from different perspectives. And the other thing is the whole thing essentially was a magic trick of deception. So these people there are probably a handful of folks that really believe they saw a plane hit the building. Yet what they were seeing was, pyroclastic effects as something was potentially flying over. But in their mind, that they're never going to reconcile that. They saw a large explosion as this object was approaching the building. They may have seen a David Copperfield presentation, and they're convinced that she teleported from the box or whatever, so the smoke and mirrors was effective.
Wow. Wow. So
I'm not even going to comment about that shit. I'm not even going to comment on it. It's just so stupid. I mean, that's like, okay, I'll comment on it because that's what we're here for. But
wow. What could you possibly say? I mean, really?
well, I'm like trying. Okay, so the government decided to create a diversion of a plane. They decided to have a plane fly toward the Pentagon and then create a diversion, have a big explosion, and then the plane flies over the Pentagon, and the government is in control of all perceptions of every witness who was there. They know exactly what everyone is going to see and how they're going to perceive the situation, because they know how everyone's brain is going to look at it. They know how everyone is going to view it from where they're at and their angle. They've completely figured all that out, yet they can't balance the budget.
Can't even hide a blowjob.
Can't hide a blowjob.
You're imagine if I'm Gene and Sandra, I'm like this.
That's what.
What? Okay,
Oh my God.
you're an educated man, right? I don't think you're stupid at all, Xanderina. I think you're an educated guy. I could tell by the way you speak. But for you to propose this theory leads me to believe that you are so fervently against the official narrative that you'll believe even the most ludicrous of theories and then make yourself believe it. That's like religion. Imagine the case of having a plane at the moment it reached the Pentagon, an explosion happened and the plane kept going. Now, all the radar satellite coverage of the nearby airports and air traffic control, all the people, every single body in the area of the vicinity of the Pentagon, including Arlington County, that's by the Pentagon because the plane kept going. Even by the highway, and there's video of this, by the way, that I saw that you used in the video, which doesn't show a plane in the sky except for the C-130. All of this is basically an illusion. They really didn't see what they saw. That's what you're going to run with?
Meanwhile, who the fuck does anybody tell anybody what they saw?
I mean, that takes gall. Especially with something like that.
Yeah, we're supposed to sit there and go, okay, thank you, Xander. You figured it out. Thank you. Awesome. Now we can go to the FBI and report this.
I'm gonna believe you, who wasn't probably even in the state, over people who were actually there. And you expect me to take you seriously? And again, I sound like a broken record. Gene and Sandra, you would rather be mad at us because we would basically call Xander Arena a liar.
I don't think he's lying. I just think he's wrong.
Yeah. You know what? I'll agree with that. I don't even think he's lying. But you can see our frustration, and you have to understand our frustration. You gotta look at all these propositions. Imagine, instead of allowing the simple, where there's less people involved in the operation, of just allowing the plane crash the building. You got to kill everybody anyway.
Whatever happened to Outcomes Razor?
What's that?
It's the most plausible scenario, is more likely the scenario.
If you're going to involve, right, this is right, your quote is right. If you're going to involve like a drone airliner, if you're going to involve anything other than Flight 77, that means you got to have the following: the FAA in Arlington, the air traffic control in Indianapolis and Washington, D.C. You got to have the first responders that were there. You got to have the FBI that was at the site. You got to have FEMA that was at every single body from the state, federal, local level has to be involved now. And you got to make sure that every single one of them followed that story for the last 21 years.
Yep. And all 1,000 people involved at the site didn't get a clue that that they weren't picking up plane parts.
Man, that's a rough one, Ed. This is a little bit easy.
But it's curious that the video doesn't have the date on it, the date and time. So it would seem to me that they are maybe still trying to hide the actual precise to the second or minute time of whatever this incident or event was that was captured on the camera. Now, the last thing
Okay.
What's referring? What was the
Talk about the
context there?
security camera that had the timestamp, September 12th.
Right. We know why it had.
Yeah, we know why. Why is that, Ed? What happened?
Because there was a glitch in that system. So when they actually created the file, it's imprinted this timestamp of when the file was created.
Right. The
And they
two men
fixed
that
it.
were involved with the extraction of the information, and they gave a testimony, Steve Pennington and Brian Austin.
That's right.
That's publicly available.
Yep. It's been out there. We talk about it.
It's not a secret.
Yeah. And by the
Um,
way, all those security cameras are the only thing you understand about security systems, come with the cameras around the Pentagon and all this stuff. When any cameras that was around the impact zone, right? The moment of impact, the cameras are immediately destroyed. Right. But so you're not actually going to capture really a plane, because you're not going to have the video available to see it. Because all those cables that are attached to that camera are being fed through the entire system. And as soon as that camera gets hit, the cable gets disconnected and there's nothing left to record. So I was talking to a buddy of mine, he owns his own security company, installs security cameras all the time, doing it for decades. And we were talking about this, and he's like, yeah, once the plane impacts the building, that cable's getting disconnected. It's not there's nothing going to the servers. Nothing going to any recording.
that's
device.
interesting. I didn't know.
Something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, well, it sounds reasonable, but I mean, again, like they're expecting the cameras on top of the roof line of Wedge 1 to work. By the way, they aren't working because it's still under renovation.
That's right. They were turned off.
And this is not, what gets me is like what we just said isn't new. It was out there for years.
Mhm.
And this next video clip is concerning you, Ed, personally.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see it.
So let me hold on. And this is actually one of my favorite parts.
All right.
I want to publicly ask Ed Brotherton why he felt the need to contact the FBI following
Yeah,
one of our war room.
that was really weird.
So what were your intentions?
He was trying to illustrate the ridiculousness. He took basically the statements
that
from
go?
like 3, 4, 5, 6 different people, threw them all together into one theory to demonstrate the absurdity of the theory. And it was really just an exercise in mockery and nothing else.
Well, I'll tell you,
It wasn't an exercise in mockery.
I think that efforts are going to be very seriously made by not all, of course, law enforcement. I'm not trying to paint this broad picture that we're all, being
You
led
already
by a
did.
bunch of psychopaths, but I think there are going to be some elements of these law enforcement wings that are going to start calling people that are asking for the truth. They're going to dub us extremists. And so I don't know if that was some type of a chess move that was made, but I just want to publicly state that I'm not going to really be a part of any meeting that guy is at. I just, that was a pretty shitty thing to do.
What the fuck? It's like I thought they had it figured out.
Well,
No, here's why.
Yeah.
Here's let me explain how this came about. Okay. So I woke up. I remember it was a Sunday morning. I woke up and I started thinking about the conversation from the days from the prior days Pentagon discussion.
Hmm.
And I was asking myself, I listened to everyone's discussion. I thought, and I was trying to piece in my head what the fuck they're trying to say. What the hell? I don't know. So I was putting together based on this person's statement, and that person's statement, this person's statement. I'm like, so I put it all together. I'm like, okay, here's the theory. And I'm like, what would this look like if it was written down on a piece of paper? If I had to go report this to the authorities, and if this is truly what they believe, if this is really what they believe, then they shouldn't have any problem in having it reported to the authorities.
Right.
Right? Because if this is what they believe, this is what they believe. And it's up to the authorities to investigate it and figure it out, right? So there should be no problem. In fact, they should be encouraging somebody to go take it to the authorities and report it. But at first I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, let me see would this look like if I were to fill out a criminal complaint, right? So I started to sit down and start typing it out, and I realized I'm like, you know what? I'm like, let me go ahead and send this to the FBI. If I'm going to fill out this criminal complaint, I might as well send it, right? Let's just carry it through. They shouldn't have. I'm thinking in my head, they shouldn't have any problem me doing this, because this is what they are selling us. This is what they're telling us happened.
right.
This is what they believe happened.
Mhm.
So report the fucking thing. Stop playing around. Stop dicking around. If you really believe it, put your belief up against the test and report it and see what happens. But here's the thing. I knew the moment I did it, the reaction I was going to get. And I got exactly the reaction I got.
Exactly.
It was I predicted it exactly. I knew exactly what was going to happen. But here's the thing they don't realize. I didn't send it to the FBI. I didn't send it to the FBI. The email address that I sent it to said FBI.gov, but it's a broken link. You can't, it actually went nowhere. It actually kicked back to me as undeliverable. And I knew it was going to be undeliverable, because in order to report anything to the FBI, you have to go through their website. And on their website, you have to sit there and make statements that everything you say here is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, any false statements is criminal or punishable by crime, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
So I'm like, well, I can't report this shit.
Because it's not true.
Because it's not true. So I couldn't actually report it. So I decided to look like I reported it in order to see what the reaction would be. And if they were truly honest, they would have said, "Oh, great, Ed, look at you, 9/11 truth, buddy. Thank you for reporting this.
Yeah, thank
Way
you.
to take it to the next level,
Right.
Finally, somebody doing something, But no, instead I get called a cocksucker evidently at some point, and they think I did it out of mockery, which I didn't. It was an attempt to understand what their position was when it looked like on paper,
What it would
what
look
their position
like.
looked like on paper,
Right, what it would look like.
and to see if it looked absurd, and it does. But it wasn't to mock them. I wasn't intending to mock them at all.
Right.
And Adam calls it a chess move. Well, maybe it was a little too of a chess move. It was a damn good one.
Right, it worked.
Yeah, I got exactly the reaction I expected, and I hope now that they know this, they could look at themselves in the mirror and ask themselves, "Yeah, what the fuck are we doing, guys?"
Right, exactly. Because that was the ultimate point of sending.
Yes,
Right.
they don't believe their own shit. In other words,
Right, exactly.
they don't believe their own shit. So if they don't believe their own shit, what the fuck are you doing?
Right, exactly. Because
You
if they
can't take
did
it to the
believe,
author-
if they did
Yeah.
believe, they'd be
They
thanking
would.
you.
That's right.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
That's exactly right.
So that's why I
Um,
did that.
Yeah, unreal. This clip is Morgan Nolan. I think he basically was talking about me specifically and us in general terms. Hold on a minute. I gotta share the screen. What am I doing?
Question of how we come to this wide disparity on the Pentagon. And just to follow up where Sandra left off, I think one point that would explain some of the trajectory that the Adam Fitzgerald group, shall we say, is coming in with. They base everything they do in the geopolitical. So they're looking in the behind the scenes, the follow the money, the CIA, looking at a ton of different things from that aspect. And as Adam Fitzgerald has put out a few videos on, say, like David Ray Griffin, that are bone dry of any real criticism, and they really show his cards when it comes to knowing anything but the geopolitical. He doesn't understand a damn thing about the science of New York.
Yeah. This is not a rib on you specifically, Morgan. So because I like you. So, but Morgan, it's no secret that I basically say that I am not to be taken as any type of an authority or even a layman when it comes to what happened at the World Trade Center. In
You
fact,
said that many times.
I don't know how many times I have to say it. In fact, I just interviewed Adam Taylor on my podcast. And I've interviewed four, David Chandler, Wayne Costi, Ross Muir, and Adam Taylor. Okay. Concentrating on a subject I know nothing about. Why? Because that's how I conduct myself when it comes to studying 9/11. I want to hear from people who I consider reasonable. I consider them reasonable. If they think or know that there was devices used in the World Trade Center, I want to hear them. And I want to hear what they have to say. And if what they say is irrational, well, I'm going to call them out on it. Well, there was nothing irrational that he said. And I'm the better for it. But it's no secret, Morgan, that I tell people, and I tell truthers this, that I'm not to be the authority when it comes to the physics 9/11. In fact, I'm worse than that. And yeah, I could give you my opinion, but it means nothing because I've done no study to it. Now, as for like the geopolitics, yeah, that's what I study. I don't ever call myself an expert. I don't ever call myself like an authority leader. I call myself a student because I'm learning every day something new, just about almost every single day. That's what I call myself, like a researcher, an investigator, a simple investigator. But at the same time, there's only the physics and the geopolitics. There is no other field involving it. In fact, the geopolitics is what the most expansive part of 9/11 is. And
Very
yet
true.
it's the most poisoned.
It's the
That's
most
it.
ignored.
Yeah, and the most ignored. Most ignored. Because you damn well will know that they're not going to be talking about Ahmed al-Hada and the Yemen hub in Yemen and
The
how
one
the
sheik.
NSA and the CIA was listening to the phone calls for 6 years prior to 9/11. They're not going to be talking about that. They're not talking about 1993 World Trade Center bombing
Mhm.
or East Africa bombings or how bin Laden got involved with radical fundamentalism and how he was followed by the CIA for years, even prior to Al Qaeda even being constructed, or they're not going to talk about how Al Qaeda was constructed. No, because you don't believe in hijackers. And so if you don't believe in hijackers, all of that I just told you about, why would I study it? So you keep it simple. Basically, you stay at ground zero. Fine by me. I never critique you for that. But I tell you straight up, you're only telling a small portion of the story. That's my only critique of people like Gene or Morgan and anybody else. But I can understand that you're intimidated by the geopolitics. It is an enormous subject and it is very confusing. But for Sandra and Gene, you basically want me to simplify it for you. I can't. In fact, when Ed set that meeting up and I was talking for 40 minutes, that was me simplifying it for you. 40 minutes. There is no Joe Schmo did this and he's related to this and bang. No. It can't be summed up like that. Last but not least, Lorraine Clark.
Oh, yes, Lorraine.
Yeah, Lorraine Clark.
Oh, Lorraine.
You know Lorraine better than me. I think I blocked her on Facebook a long time ago.
I think I
For
finally did.
obvious reasons. She goes by Ruby Gray and other names, and this is what she has to say.
Has recently released a whole load of information, and amongst that was testimony from the crew of the C-130, not just the pilot, but some of the crew. And they gave totally different story from what the pilot gave.
Wow.
I couldn't hear that very well.
Oh, okay. You couldn't hear that well?
No,
Um,
there's something about C-130.
yo, hold on a minute. Let's see if you can hear that.
They gave totally different story from what the pilot gave.
Wow.
I'll have to enlarge on that probably on
The next one.
Facebook and sort of contrast the two viewpoints. But it sounds to me like the crew was told to say that they went here, while the pilot has publicly said many times that he went on a totally different route, which is again different from the radar. So
No.
it's all very interesting, but certainly Lieutenant Colonel Steve O'Brien,
Whoops.
his version of his flight path does not agree with the radar. So
Does this match with what you're saying then? News article I just found. C-130 crew saw Pentagon strike. Officials confirmed.
well, they didn't actually see the Pentagon strike because they were so far away from it they couldn't make out where it was. According
Right.
to Steve O'Brien, it was a couple of minutes before he got there and then identified where the fire was, and that was the Pentagon. But he said it looks like the plane has hit the Pentagon. And on all the audio records, they have deleted the spaces in between verbal communications. So it sounds like he's saying it as soon as it crashed, but in fact, he said it looked like the Pentagon had looked like the plane had crashed, was a couple of minutes before he said it looks like the plane went into the Pentagon. He did not know when he first saw the fireball that it was at the Pentagon. He couldn't tell where it was. He said the sun was in his eyes, and
Oh, sunblind.
he could not make out where the plane had landed or hit or where the explosion came from. So a lot of people are confused about that, and but Steve O'Brien was quite adamant that he did not see it actually hit. He saw a fireball, couldn't tell where it was.
FAA, Air Traffic Control, actually got in contact with the C-130 plane, and the call sign was Venus 77. And they asked him to deviate from his flight and to follow 77. That's what they told him. And we have that on audio. It's released, it's public. And he told them, yes, I could see an American Airlines plane. And as it was going into the airspace near the Pentagon, he basically couldn't see the impact because he's way up in the air. And he says, well, he goes, it looks like the plane at the Pentagon because there was a big explosion. He didn't see a flyover. He didn't see anything else. Doesn't mention anything else. And the radar suggested that that's exactly what happened. And again, just like the others, you're going to assume what he saw on what he heard. Yeah. I don't know what else to say.
I don't know either, man. It's like it's just that was it's just I don't get it. I don't get it, man. It's like there's just like, you know, I can't. I once thought what they thought, not to the extreme that they thought it, but yeah, you know, I once thought a plane didn't hit the Pentagon.
Me too.
I looked at new information and was able to evaluate that data, look at that new evidence, and based on that new evidence, I was able to come to a different conclusion. And it's, for some reason, these guys have a hard time doing that. They are, in fact, every time they get hit with new evidence that contradicts what they believe, they go into some really, really, really fine weeds in order to find something else to help them prove their belief.
So Ed, let me concentrate on it because I want to say. So when you got interested in 9/11, what were you expecting out of it? Like, what did you want to do?
Well, I had a lot of questions. You know, like the video is actually of the Pentagon hit is what actually got me in it.
Oh, is it right? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Right.
that's the first thing I saw, and I was like, "What?" And it didn't make any sense to me at first. And then we started. There was other people who started questioning things, and then it became started meeting with a couple of people at a local restaurant,
Mhm.
and then found out about 9/11 Truth LA, and then we started going there at the Underwood Cafe in Santa Monica and meeting there, and there was other people who were asking, you know, so it was all about asking questions, and through that, you know, was you know, it kind of became what it is now, pathetic.
And then when you got new information, did it come as a shock to you, or did you hesitate at first?
No, it wasn't really shock. It was just, okay, great. I'm glad, you know, it was like more like it was more like I just knew it wasn't true. It's like I can look, here's the thing. I like to think I have the ability to look at things and go, you know, and change my mind based on what I'm seeing.
Mhm.
You know, I'm flexible. And I'm not, you know, I'm not into holding on to things because it doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve me well at all. It just makes me a bitter person. It makes me not sociable, and it makes me not. It's not the truth, and I don't want. We're the truth movement, and if you're going to be the truth movement, you better fucking tell the truth, not hold on to bullshit.
Hmm.
You know, it's not everything is a look. Believe me, if there's anybody who would latch on to believe in these outlandish conspiracy theories, it'd probably be me, because I'm the one who was even prior to 9/11 already on board at doing a lot of activism, et cetera, on various things,
Hmm.
and already distrusting my government for lying to me. So I was already in that mindset of not trusting the government, and therefore, truth be damned if it brings down the government,
Right.
But I'm not. That's not me. The reason why the reason why I was involved in the early activism pre 9/11 is because I was searching for the truth, and I found it. And when I found it, it was contrary to what the government was telling me.
Yeah,
And
but anyway, right. Anyway.
yes,
Right.
so I don't bring me bullshit. Don't bring me a bunch of bullshit, because it's bullshit. That's it. And so I can, it's easy to spot bullshit when you, especially when you contrast it with something that makes sense.
And why do you think, like, what is it about, say, Adam Eisenberg that makes him want to hold on to these theories in opposition to the evidence?
I honestly, I don't know, because I don't know him well enough to be able to give you any insight. But I think a lot of it has to do with his relationship with his father and his hatred to government, because of how they treated him with the Veterans Administration, the Veterans Administration.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, look, Gene, Sandra, I mean, if you made it to this end, bless you. But this was, again, we didn't want to make this to be like, hey, screw you, because I still don't think of you as that way. And I have no reason to. But I will say this. I am highly, and even at times frenzied, critical to people like Barbara Honegger. I'm not that way to you. I consider you victims. But Barbara Honegger knows exactly what she's doing.
Mhm.
And she's telling falsehoods on purpose, even in the light of evidence, even in that email exchange where we weren't rude to her. And Ed did 3 video responses to her, showing her where she's wrong. No response, nothing from you guys either. And yet you want to stay in this corner because you believe in cohesion. Well, that's not true either, because if you actually believed in cohesion, you would actually have us along with you. But I can't be cohesive to somebody who's actually promoting falsehoods. And this is you brought this up too, Gene, in the video, where my test question is, do you support the Lawyers Committee grand jury inquiry? I don't support the Lawyers Committee at all. Why? Because on their board membership are people like Barbara Honegger and Richard Gage and Jane Clark. And they promote falsehoods, which would lead me to question why Mick Harrison would actually have them in his group, knowing full well that in the public eye, they would be absolutely criticized. And that's the reason why you're not getting a grand jury impaneled. You may never get one. And if you do, which I'm hoping you do, because I want to see you guys in court, because if that day comes and you got to let Barbara Honegger speak, that's the end of you. And you'll get the April Gallup treatment. And then you could just act like Adam Eisenberg and basically say, you see, the government's against us, instead of saying, where did we go wrong?
Exactly. There's got to be some humility going on.
Didn't you say once, Ed, to Gene, what if you lose in court? Where's the backup plan? Did you say something like that?
Yeah.
And what did he say, Gene?
We're not going to lose. Very, 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 not a very bad viewpoint.
Right. You always got to have a backup plan. Always. But yeah. So I think we can leave it at that. I mean, we
Yeah.
spent an exhaustive amount and we said a lot.
Anyway, I hope our criticisms are taken with you know, not with any anger or angst or anything like that, but I just want you all to understand that this is you guys have a lot of misunderstandings, and we're here to clear them up. And by the way, if anybody ever has a problem with me, you got my phone number. Just call me and ask me.
Right.
Nobody does that. It's like nobody called me, say, "Hey Ed, how come you sent that email to the FBI?" I would explain it to you. But nobody bothers to call me and ask me. Nobody comes to me and says, "Hey, what's up?" And I'll talk to you. I'll explain it. I have no problem with that. Everyone has you all have my phone number. You know how to reach me. So don't I wouldn't advise just letting it go and then just start talking about it all over your war room, because if you don't understand what's going on. And this is actually goes to the point about how you guys are operating, because if that would be a logical thing to do. If you have a problem with somebody or something that somebody did, then the logical thing would be to communicate and call the person up and say, "Hey, I saw this. What's up with this? Why'd you do it?" And then we can discuss it and be done with it.
Right.
But you didn't do that. You want to hold on to it. You want to hold on to it. Avoid talking to me about it because you want to have your own belief about it. And then you could take that own belief, you could take it to the war room, you can talk about it, gossip about it, say, "Oh, Ed did this, Ed's doing this, Ed's doing this." Yet nobody talked to me about it. Nobody asked me. I'll tell you straight up why I did it, and I already did. So it goes to show you just where your thinking is and why think about that. Why did you approach it that way? And it might give you a good insight as to the rest of the things you're doing.
You'll get a clear understanding too. And, to end it, I don't consider anyone in the war room an enemy. I think you're
Yeah, me either.
victims of these people. Like, I know you can't stand my attitude, and I'm very aggressive to Barbara Honegger or Richard Gage, and I'm never going to stop. Never. Not unless if they keep promoting falsehoods. I'm going to have the tenacity that you guys should, because they're representing you, not representing me.
Exactly.
You. I'm actually going to call them out for their fringe theories and their falsehoods. Something that you should have done long ago. In fact, I think I know why you don't. And I think you're afraid of getting the David Chandler and Wayne Cosby treatment. Whereas if you actually said, "Hey, wait a minute, I was wrong. Flight 77 really did hit the Pentagon." You know what would happen to you? This is something I told Barbara Honegger once on Facebook many years ago. I said, you'll get either 3/4 or everybody that you commiserate with or follow you to turn on you and basically call you a shill. And because you can't go to like the debunker side or the skeptics because you alienated them, you're all alone and nobody's going to believe you. And that will be the end of you. But at least you have your dignity and you have the truth on your side. But you got to appease the masses. That's what I think. I'm just speculating. That's why I think you can't come right out and say it.
I concur. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. But yeah, just to say, Sandra and Gene, I have no personal animosity to you. I never did. I disagree with certain things. We could talk about, we've done it before. But yes, I'm always going to be quite critical to Richard Gage and to Barbara Honegger and to Christopher Bolin and Jason Burmis and Adam Eisenberg and all these people who will propagate these lies and falsehoods and speculations in the light of the evidence. I'm sorry, because I'm not going to compromise myself just so I could get a few more followers. I'd rather have nobody follow me if that's going to be the case. Because when I talk to people who follow me on YouTube, I'm hoping that they do their due diligence and research what I have to say, because I don't want them to believe something. I want them to know something. That's how you build a movement. Ed, any
You're here.
final words?
Nope, I just made them.
All right. Ed, this was some experience.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, have a good night. And listen, we're open to dialogue. Gene, Sandra, and anybody else. Okay, have a good night.